Good morning, good morning, good morning, Milwaukee. This is David Bowen on Be a Voice Radio on WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM. We have another chance to highlight some more clips to you guys. Um, and we got Jermaine pulling it up right now. But the weather's getting better. First off,
Yeah, man.
I'll take in the 40s.
All day long.
Sometimes the mailman will start walking in shorts by now. If you see anybody that's outside constantly and they holding it down, shouts out to our postal workers. Thank you for your service, especially during the holidays. And we know that you all are out there making sure that you're getting those gifts and good things for those that you love, and those that work in logistics, those that work for the postal station, for the postal service. They're doing all they can to get that there to you, your loved ones, on time. So first off, I got to give a shout out to them, and I'm glad the snow is melting. Ice is almost, on its way out. No more falling for Jermaine when he's leaving the house.
No, none of that, Doc. At first I was dreaming of a white Christmas, but I'll take a nice gray one. I take it all day.
Smart.
Yeah,
Not bad.
Take it all day.
And sometimes it works out better that way.
Yeah, man. Now I know when I was living in North Carolina, this was one of the perks for me. It was 70 degrees around Christmas time, and then for New Year's Eve, New Year's, it was 75, 80 degrees. So, do you getting dressed, getting ready to go out and kick it and have fun? But it was that warm weather, man, and the smell in the air, and the sun was shining. I like Christmas like that, man.
Got you.
All of this white stuff and cold and freezing and slipping, and I didn't have my time with that, man.
Got you.
Time to do something different.
Yeah.
So
I did see that we are now above average on temperature.
I'll take it.
We went from below average, vastly below average, to now above in the 40s. And this is Wisconsin, so you know what's going to happen? Man. It's about to dip again.
It's going to be a snowstorm tonight.
It's about to dip to actually, I think it'll drop nearly 20 degrees overnight, where, you might have you parked your car, went in the house, and you will come back and it will be pretty brisk.
But they said it's supposed to be in the 50s on Thursday.
Yeah. So we got some up and down weather, but I feel like this is how it's easy for you to get sick.
Of course, man, because your body don't know what to do. It's like
your body confused.
Your body don't know.
Your immune system's like, are we good or we not? Are we good or we not?
Doc, it's like playing a double dutch. It's like your body is don't know when to jump in, when to jump out. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Our guest is here. He come sitting in the studio.
A ghost just opened it now. So the first we had the dog, now we got a ghost.
He didn't get the memo that we got Green Bay gear on.
Oh man, you tripping, man.
So you are slipping on that. But big shouts out to
either. I got on Brewers.
There you go.
I mean, that's still hometown.
Yeah.
So I guess you get the haircut. That's still hometown.
That is.
My man's come in, man. Come on, man. We're the Green Bay, man.
We're going to get into some conversation with Darren Madison in a bit. But let me bring this clip in. It is at the 5-minute and 36-second mark. If you're familiar with Don Lemon, he is a former anchor from CNN. Yeah, 36. And what he did was a number of folks that have been on cable news, they have shifted to go independent. And he has a dynamic podcast, Don Lemon podcast, and he has been on fire, really highlighting a number of different topics and having those really clear conversations that are pushing the envelope on everything that's going on. And hopefully you have been able to kind of get a sense of what he's been talking about, because his numbers are doing really good. He has a podcast, and on this episode, he is highlighting how, and there are two guests, with Jayat, I want to say that's how you pronounce his first name, Ali, and Joy Reid, another former anchor. She was on the MSNBC side, so former anchor on there, and she's been in the podcast world too. So they are talking about the difference of the arguments that we're having right now over if it is economic anxiety or if it is racism. So let's play that first clip.
Black woman, a Somalian woman, that she's garbage, and the people and some Somalian Americans are garbage, and that they come from a country that's garbage. I never thought in a million years, before Donald Trump. Now it's just part of the course, but that you'd have a president who would speak that way, and now he is, and he's and getting applause from people in that cabinet meeting when he said those things. So yeah, they reveal themselves. They reveal themselves every single day. I mean, I think Pete Hegseth is a daily reveal of the sort of white supremacy or white racism, white supremacy or entitlement. Let's put it that way, entitlement, because he's in a job that he is completely unqualified for. And when he got into that job, when Sean Duffy got his job, when J.D. Vance got his job, they all stood up there. Do you remember that press conference when they had about the airplanes in Washington, D.C., claiming that they were hiring white people? They were hiring. They weren't hiring white people, qualified white people. They were hiring minorities over qualified white people. They said the quiet part out loud. So not even just over this last week, since Donald Trump has been in office, and this new administration especially, they have been revealing themselves from the very beginning.
I mean, I would go back 10 years, Don.
So he is really going in and highlighting especially the root of these attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. And if you remember, this was something that was very much championed by Democratic administrations. You could say going far back into the 60s and 70s, but ultimately this has created the angst among the right and under the current administration to attack any policy, any system change that has been established to champion diversity, champion equity and inclusion in the policy sphere. So it is interesting to see him tee off his conversation like that. And if you've also been paying attention, Turning Point USA just had their conference. And later we'll have a clip from, you can hear how the vice president, J.D. Vance, is pretty much teeing the next debate for, we're already in 2028. They are making decisions now to tee up what will happen after President Trump is apparently can't run again, but you've heard grumblings that he maybe will try to, but ultimately, as these conversations are happening and it's being forward, we're in 2025 right now, not even the first year complete of the Trump presidency 2.0, and J.D. Vance has got the blessing already that he will be the candidate in 2028, according to Erica Kirk, the wife of the assassinated Charlie Kirk. So there's another spot at the 21 minute and 38 second spot on this podcast where Joy Reid joins them and continues to go, I would say, further in and dissecting the angst that the right is continuing to. Yep, 21:38. Yeah, that's true too. Before we shift to the second clip, let's take the caller and welcome to Be a Voice Radio caller.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
Good morning.
Assalamu alaikum to you, brother.
Blessings, brother.
Yes, sir. Just listening. And I don't want to be like some person who's like I'm just adamantly opposed to people who are speaking their pieces concerning us, primarily black people. But when people are talking about black Americans and how our ancestors, primarily black people who are, as Mr. Perry says, the descendants of the enslaved. Those of us, no matter what our mixture is, most of everyone that has come here, I think it was George Bush who allowed people from India to come here with some type of visas to supposedly replace unqualified Americans who they had deemed disqualified to do certain things or with regard to certain disciplines, primarily having to do with the medical field, scientific things, those types of things. And so people have come here and they've actually benefited for the sacrifices of people that they have no respect for. And our problem is that we lack, in my opinion, and we lack focus. And it's never to be against our people who are in the diaspora, but primarily, I'm thinking about how Somali people have made themselves exclusive, and they claim to be. And this is not to agree with anyone who is to make it some type of Arab thing against black people, because every nationality has benefited from the suffering and the enslavement of the black American people, or those who, as Mr. Perry says, the descendants of the enslaved, and as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the lost found tribe of Shabazz, the Nation of Islam, in the wilderness of North America. So why are we not, and why are we not, why are we so, I understand why we are so inclusive, because we do understand suffering, but we involve people who have no intention that is beneficial to our forward progress. In the fraternity, there's a statement that says forward forever, backwards never. And why are we not practicing these principles that we take an oath and declare our lives to stand up on? What about that?
Appreciate you, caller, and thank you for calling in. I think one of the things you do highlight is there's a part of this that is the debate on immigration as well. And as you talk about the whole diaspora, it reminds me of some of the early conversations that have happened. As you see, the administration right now has targeted, essentially, and blatantly too, bringing in immigrants from white countries and rejecting immigrants from black countries. And then even the controversy of before, it was alleged that the president said in a cabinet meeting, an official meeting with other officials, where he referred to African nations as S-hole countries. And if you remember that controversy, everybody said he didn't really say it. He didn't say it. Well, he actually came out and said that he did say it. So that is a real, the real underbelly of their agenda, where they literally are blatantly rejecting immigrants based on where they come from and what they look like, and accepting other immigrants of where they come from, what they look like. So I think, it's an interesting conversation to have. And I do want to tee up this next clip where we will continue to talk about just this dynamic. And I think a lot of folks are concerned about both of these issues. They're concerned about affordability, but especially if you are a person of color, if you are in any way oppressed, you definitely are noticing some of the systemic attacks that are affecting you and your community and your dynamics in this country right now. So, and we got a couple more callers that are coming in. Okay, yeah, we can go to the caller first before we go to the next clip. Hey, caller, welcome to Be Voice Radio.
Hey, how's it going? These are things that we experienced in his first term. We knew that he was a 34-time convicted felon who never rented to African Americans. You know, we know who this person is.
Mm-hmm.
This person is a draft dodging traitor who says that, you know, black people eat dogs. He's a person who, it's nothing new that this regime and this cult rejects everything that is not white male and pretending to be heterosexual when many of them, for example, when you have this Charlie Kirk's organization event, they said that the Grinder algorithms rise every time they're in a city, which is a site that homosexual people use for dating. But you know, these are pretenders, and these are people who are actually robbing our elderly, our children, and veterans blind. And there is unfortunately a really uninformed 8% of black people who supported that. And many other people of color who thought, not me, like farmers, and now they're finding out. And it's a shame that now the country, he said he's going to make deals. Now the country is up for sale. He's attacking small vessels and calling it a war when he was too afraid to go to the Vietnam War. So it's FAFOC. And we had an excellent choice, but people wanted to go through her history with a fine-tooth comb, even though she's probably one of the most qualified candidates who ever ran for president. If you look at the two resumes, so it showed the world how evil at least half or slightly more than half of America is. Because if you're not a Choctaw, if you're not an Apache, everybody came here wrong. Everybody came here either through human trafficking, and the individual who occupies the White House, his grandfather was an illegal alien. He's married to immigrants. His children are children of immigrants, like the people he's sending to countries that they've never been to. So this is what people voted for, and we had a much better choice, and it just has embarrassed America like I knew it would more than a decade ago when this guy walked down the escalator lying about Barack Obama.
Very good point. Appreciate your call and your insights. Spot on. You know, very clear. All the points that you're laying out, and I'll say this, and we're getting close to taking a break, and then we'll go into the next clip from the Don Lemon podcast. But you know, it is no surprise that where we are right now. And if you remember that skit on SNL with Dave Chappelle when Donald Trump won the first time, and it was like a group of people watching the election results, and the black people in the room that were just like they were not surprised at all, but the white people were very surprised. It was just like that. Like this is the exposure of where we are right now. So appreciate your insights. Let's go ahead and go to a break. When we come back, we'll have that second clip, but then we'll also bring in State Representative Darren Madison of the 10th District and get him in on the conversation, some of the things that he's doing around affordability and those economic anxieties that also people feel. Be a voice. Welcome back to Be a Voice Radio. I am David Bowen from Wisconsin Voices, and we're covering some of the hot topics. This clip from the Don Lemon podcast is pretty powerful. He has Joy Reid, also a former cable news anchor, and Ajawat Ali, I believe that's his name. So we're going to play this for about 2 minutes.
A 400-year head start on everyone in this chat. You had a 400-year head start on all three of us. So if you're still not a billionaire, if you're still broke, if you're still struggling, and if you're still angry that you can't get into Harvard, why can't you? Because if you're sort of naturally superior, you shouldn't have to worry about there being Black competition or brown competition or female competition. Why are you so triggered by just the competition from people of color? Why did just the presence of them trigger you? You had a 400-year head start. You should all be Elon Musk. Why do you have to come from out of the country to be a billionaire in your country? Maybe you should start asking yourself questions about what you're doing wrong personally and stop fixating on other people.
I wouldn't wish anyone becomes Elon Musk because he's such a loser. He's so broken. But Don, I didn't mean to cut you off. Joy came on, I introduced her, but you were talking about your experience with these folks and how they come after you, but you feel like it's a type of envy.
Oh, it is. It's like love and hate. I don't mind it. Hate watch me all you want. Just make sure you like and subscribe, and I'm cool with it. It doesn't matter to me. And even the trolls in the comment, it doesn't matter. But I mean, Waj, think about this. You're a heterosexual man. Are you threatened by transgender people? Are you threatened by me as a gay person? Do you think I'm taking your job? Do you think that all of a sudden I'm gonna I don't know what molest you or something? You know what I'm saying? It's just bizarre.
I've said this publicly. I've only been threatened by you and Joy because Black doesn't crack, and Don can be either 85 years old or 35. That's the only thing that makes me threatened is the nice skin. That's it. Other than that, no. I think secure, confident, heterosexual men know who they are, and they're not threatened. And speaking about transgender folks, the stupidity of this, Don, in Pakistan, Karachi, Pakistan, where my family.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, they were spitting on there. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. And journalism is evolving. So some of the great minds and voices aren't just on some of the national news shows, but you can still catch some of those. But yeah, they are continuing to go in, and I do find it interesting because, as Joy says, it's kind of like thinking about the dog whistles of the '90s and bootstrap theory of just pull your own self up by your bootstraps, but then using that in the context of folks who claim that they are being stopped in this day and age in 2025, and that DEI, because of diversity, because of equity, because of inclusion, they cannot get ahead. Very interesting on that. Now, I do have State Representative Darren Madison in the building, who represents a very diverse district in the state legislature, and you have this dynamic where Darren, we got some round of applause for you. Shemaine, thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
You have this dynamic where people are paying attention to both, some paying attention to each side more than others, economic anxiety, but then also the concerns about the direction of the country, the direction of our communities under this pretense that DEI has to be destroyed. The feelings that people of color are continuing to fall further and further behind, and that there needs to be these extra things to, in a sense, help white folks to be able to get ahead in this day and age.
Yeah. Right now, no matter where you are on the political spectrum or your personal identity, everyone in this country is struggling with affordability in one shape or form, unless you're the richest of the rich in our country. And what the narrative that that our communities are facing at the national scale is who's to blame for it, right? Is it folks of color, or is it the structure of our government? Is our government wasting dollars, or is it big business taking advantage of people. The only folks who are gaining money in this moment are big businesses, right? Like they
Those
are
at the top of
they are
those
having,
companies.
they're having, record-breaking financial years, right? The price of food is going up, and you have big companies that, that are major distributors of food making record profits. This happened during the pandemic. It's happening now. And the folks who are struggling with that are us, the folks who work every day to ensure that our society continues to function. But while the right blames folks who look like me and you, we need to turn our attention towards the folks who are taking money out of our pockets.
That's interesting. As you talk about the price of things going up and who it affects, and you think about, are those are the people that control those companies that are affected by the increase in costs? Are they saying anything, or are they just passing that cost on to the consumer, and then we end up as everyday working people paying the difference? Are we stuck with certain companies that are pushing back? Now, I did see a company like a Costco, where they literally are suing the Trump administration because of the extra costs and tariffs. You are seeing dynamics where a company like Ford is saying, we're just going to take the hit in tariff policy,
and not pass that cost.
Yeah, and not pass the costs as much as possible to the consumer. So there are some interesting dynamics that you're bringing up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I would, applaud the work of Costco and Ford, but I also know that there's a profit incentive of doing good too, right? Okay. When you
like a responsibility.
Yeah. Right. When you are doing things like shielding the cost of your products from your consumers, more consumers will come to your product instead, right? Not every company is gonna make that choice. Yeah. But it's a bet in its own right, right? If you're a CEO, you have to make a choice. Every decision you make as a company feeds into your long-term marketing strategy. The more you get along with the consumer, the more the consumer fuels your own economy. So choices like that Costco makes and Ford makes it so folks are choosing Ford over Honda, and Costco over Walmart, which is a great strategy in terms of a business model, from my perspective.
Interesting. So let's break this down when it comes to what people are feeling as those who are the majority of working people.
Yeah.
Right? They are not the owners typically of those big companies. They typically aren't working at the top of those companies. Are you seeing anything on the horizon that can help balance the influence and power that working people have to one day become owners or have a bigger share of what they earn, and to be owners eventually, or have their piece of the pie in ownership?
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, to add a little bit more context, I don't want folks who own a business, right, that is your local business or a medium-sized business that may yield a profit of a few millions in our state and in our cities, to think that I'm talking about them when I'm talking about big business. The reality is that, like, you are a small business when it compares to the profits of the big businesses that are taking advantage of communities around this nation. So you deserve to exist and thrive and propagate. For while folks who are hoarding the wealth need to pay their fair share in the form of tax and so on. Some of the things that are on the horizon as it relates to this issue area are things like ESOPs, employee stock ownership options, which we introduced a piece of legislation at the beginning of the session that got a hearing, and it passed through the Assembly, and it's close to passing through the Senate, that would incentivize owners who are closing down their businesses to sell their businesses to their employees, allowing them to create a stock option where all of the employees own stock in that business. Examples of businesses like that that we know well are Woodman's here in the state of Wisconsin. That is an ESOP. So we need to create more opportunities like that so that employees can become owners and actually yield a benefit from the work that they're producing.
That's interesting. Have you seen where is that kind of like where Mark Cuban, who's a billionaire, he ends up selling a portion of his stake in the Dallas Mavericks at the time, and he gives a ownership check to all of his employees, and everybody gets tens of thousands, right? In the form of their stake, and that they have contributed to the success of this organization, this company, and they get paid out that way. Or like even a Taylor Swift, where she goes on a $1 billion tour, her truck drivers get an extra $100,000 pretty much share of the profits from what she otherwise would make and pull in for herself, and she offers that to those who helped produce the outcome, help produce the immense amount of success for that company. I believe her dancers ended up getting hundreds of thousands and like ownership of the profit in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are models, right? Like them passing Taylor Swift and Mark Cuban passing that cost or that revenue on to the employees is very close to that. But with a Cuban's example is probably the closest thing to it, right? He sold his stock, gave them a check. Where a ESOP comes into place is you're consistently yielding the dividends. So you get the money every year you're making based off the profit shares of the business. You are making, you get your extra $100, $200, $3,000, right? Based off, how many shares of the company you've earned over the time you've worked there. Yeah. So if you work there for 10, 20 years, you own, 10% possibly, depending on, 10% if it's depending on the number of employees working in the space. But yeah, like that, if I'm owning something, if I have ownership in the place that I'm working in, I'm going to work harder, right? Because I want to ensure that I get that dividends at the end of the year. If I'm not yielding that profit, right, and at the end of the day, I'm getting paid the same amount that I'm making, regardless of how much this company makes, I have no incentive to work harder. So we need to be more invested in the employees that we have, as opposed to our own pocketbooks, especially those at the top. Because what happens is when we put more money into our economy that way, it's used, right? And the lower you are in income, the more money you spend on an average basis on the combination of bills and other essential needs, right? The more wealth that you have, the less money you typically spend, as I've seen in studies. Other things that we've been trying to address has been the affordability crisis as it relates to energy, especially amongst the rise of data centers, and then also creating some real stringent pathways to removing property tax from our education spending, right? So property tax takes up about 45% of your 45% of your property tax goes towards funding public education, and voucher education in the state of Wisconsin. And we introduced a bill literally 2 weeks ago that would take the portion of education funding that is related to property taxes, and change that to an income tax for folks in the wealthiest folks in our state, which would save everyone, regardless of where you are, in terms of where you feel like you are, right? Lower income, middle class, or upper middle class, a substantial amount of money, especially as we are seeing a lot of issues with property taxes being at the forefront of people's mind.
Yeah, those property tax bills just got distributed and sent to every Milwaukee household. So we all are seeing those numbers, and seeing those increases, seeing those eye-popping numbers where it's like, okay, I paid this much last year, the year before, and it's what now? So it's sometimes can be alarming, a lot of times, and for folks to hopefully be in a position where they can afford to be able to reinvest back into public services, reinvest back into education, which we would want everyone to be able to do, within reason.
Mm-hmm.
Within reason. So, appreciate your work on that. It also reminds me of how we do need to lift up the value of work.
Yeah.
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King would talk about all work has value, right? And it don't matter if the top of the company is run by execs and the building company headquarters is being cleaned by an amazing janitor.
Mm-hmm.
The amazing janitor deserves pay to actually be able to invest back into their family too. Their mission of keeping that building clean is valuable. And that speaks to one of his most powerful last speeches, being with the sanitation workers.
Yeah.
Cleaning a community prevents diseases, increases health, and it's a very noble line of work to be able to do. But if we have this mindset that it's just the janitor and it's just the sanitation worker, they don't need fair pay, they don't need to be reinvested in or invested in, we end up devaluing that work, and then devaluing the people that work in those roles.
Yeah.
And we know in this city, a lot of the transition from those traditional manufacturing jobs that were in existence in, let's say, the 30th Street corridor, blocks away from where we are right now at WNLV Studios, those jobs paid living wages more, even in the 70s and 80s, more than living wages, and came with a pension, came with a piece of ownership by the time you retired.
Yeah.
That you could take care of your family, your children's children, and in some ways, and with the replacement of service sector jobs that don't provide wages to the same degree, don't provide living wages to the same degree, much harder to do that. So it adds to the anxiety that a lot of workers feel in the economy right now, or those that are around our ages. I was talking about millennials yesterday, and how millennials have been exposed to pretty much every kind of breakdown in the era of man. We've seen wars, we've seen recessions, we've seen the increasing demands on us to be able to be the sandwich generation and take care of our parents, but then also take care of kids and cousins and nephews and nieces younger than us, to take care of both generations. We handle a lot. But yeah, what you're talking about is, what is the value of investing in people?
Yeah.
And I do appreciate you having that angle.
And absolutely. And at the end of the day, we all do better when we all do better.
Does a rising tide really lift all boats?
It can.
It actually can.
It actually can, right? And the reality is that, the same expenses that the janitor who works in the business has are the same expenses that, the secretary, the department manager, and so on, right? They have families to feed, and they have bills that they have to keep track of. And if we aren't paying folks equitably, right, we're saying that, this janitor doesn't deserve to live in a quality home, doesn't deserve to put food on his table, and take care of his family or their family. And the reality is we all deserve the ability to live in a community and work in a community that is thriving and is sustainable. So, when last time I was here, we were having a conversation about increasing the minimum wage.
Yep.
And a gentleman came on and called in and was like, hey, if we do that, it's gonna mess up every business. And we're not gonna be able to, ensure that folks who are working harder are in a position to thrive. And it's like, no. We know that when we raise wages, everybody gets a boost in some way, shape, and form, and it forces us to put more money into the economy at the federal level and at the state level to support businesses and to support workers to be in a position to take care of themselves. And then it also makes it so that more people are spending, right? When you give folks the resources that they need, they spend those resources to take care of their essential needs, and then gives them the ability to support their families and have the ability to play, right? Folks will go to Bucks games, Brewers games. They'll go out to the local restaurants that are in your neighborhood.
True. And a lot of local restaurants are dying right now.
Yeah, and they'll spend money in your small businesses, right? Your small tax, accounting firm. They'll be looking to buy houses and so on, putting everybody in a position to make more money.
Yeah.
So all boats could rise. But the question is, are we willing to make the investment in the folks who are struggling the most? And right now, that's just about everybody.
Well, let me ask you this: would you say the dynamic today, both some people will say like it's no longer about race, it's more so economic, it's more so fueled by those who are at the top versus those at the bottom, those who are owners versus those who are workers, those who depend on working income, and those who depend on dividends or depend on capital gains. How would you describe that?
Yeah, so I typically refute the narrative that that our biggest structural issue is an economic issue in this country and in this nation. I believe that the struggles of people in this nation are intersectional, meaning that we could live in a society that is economically well off and still have racism propagating. Because that's a society that this nation has been built on, right? The exclusion of communities of color, or the genocide of communities of color, in an effort to yield major profits, right? The profits from the land, the profits from the goods, and so on, and the profits from the people. So we could, as it relates to what we need to do, yes, we need to invest in workers. We do need to navigate our structural relationship with capitalism, which thrives off exploitation, while also addressing the structural issues with racism that runs rampant throughout our communities.
Absolutely. Appreciate you being able to break that down. You consider yourself a democratic socialist.
I do.
So interesting to hear the words of a young man. Make that clear. Things are shaping up for 2026, 2028. Want to get your insights on that. JD Vance was at the Turning Point USA conference, and he had this to say about the thing that binds those on the right, conservatives right now. Let's hear it.
There's still so much important work to do, my friends. We're barely a year into this administration, not even a year into the administration. But I'm so proud of the accomplishments of the president and the entire administration. In just a year, we ended Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's border crisis. December marks 7 months straight of zero releases at the southern border. More than 2.5 million illegal immigrants have left the United States, the first time in over 50 years that we have had negative net migration, and it's just the start. When you restore sanity at the border, it shows up everywhere else. Rent prices are dropping 4 months in a row, and more native-born Americans are working than ever before. Kamala Harris.
Yeah, that's some of the premise that he is setting up the conversation to continue when it comes to how they are trying to gather their angle of how they approach immigration, how they approach affordability, and we know the real dynamics of how they have defended how this is an A plus economy, and they have defended it to the max. But people are feeling the brunt of the decisions that have been made. What say you to some of those angles?
So people are still dealing with increased prices of groceries, right? That was a linchpin of Trump's campaign, saying that he will reduce grocery prices and they're going up. People are dealing, he also said that he would make America more affordable for folks in terms of housing. And I've gotten consistent emails from my constituents saying that their rent's going up, and that their energy bill's going up, and they want something to be done about it. And states are being put in a position where their resources are being taken away, and they have to fill the gap from federal funding, which Trump will call savings, but it's really passing the cost on to somebody else. And that's our states and our cities, which puts us in a position where we can't take care of other essential needs. Now, in that video that we just watched, we just heard JD Vance talk about immigration and how immigration is, how thanks to their efforts, we're dealing with less of a crisis at the border. Then my question is, why do we still have the financial incentive for folks to work at ICE if things are stable now? And then also, why are we still sending ICE into more cities across this country if our immigration issue has been solved? And then also, they just came out with their, I just saw on Fox News, them talking about a stipend for folks who self-deport.
I did see that too. Yeah.
Right. Like, you don't need to create these incentives if the work that you're doing is already, it's already done, and already been effective. So those are,
spend more tax money.
Dude.
Let's play this next clip, and I want to get your insight. This is also further into a speech.
Unlike the left, we stand against treating anybody, and I love what Nikki said about this. We don't treat anybody different because of their race or their sex. So we have relegated DEI to the dustbin of history, which is exactly where it belongs. In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore. And if you're an Asian, you don't have to talk around your skin color when you're applying for college, because we judge people based on who they are, not on ethnicity and things they can't control. We don't persecute you for being male, for being straight, for being gay, for being anything. The only thing that we demand is that you be a great American patriot. And if you're that, you're very much on our team.
Okay. Since when have white folks had to apologize for being white? Have you seen that?
Nah, man.
I've never seen or heard of such a thing.
Right. Like, no one has ever forced white people to apologize for their whiteness. If that happened, we'd have reparations. But you know, in our society, you have folks, especially, you know, conservative folks who create this narrative that, like, they are the biggest victim, especially as it relates to you know, our basic civil rights and things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just had lunch literally 2 weeks ago, with a gentleman who is from the East Coast, and southern portion of the East Coast, and was talking about how he was doing work when he was younger and ended up in a position where he created, and this is a white man, created one of the first kind of DEI programs for the military. And how, you know, the DEI program was focused on getting more folks from his small white, you know, rural community into the military, not focusing on getting more black folks into the military. And then you spend, you know, you go a few more years in his work, and he started doing work around workforce. And he talked about how folks in factories before there was provisions that, you know, forced companies to look at, you know, protected classes and creating access points for them to work. The only way to get a promotion in those jobs were to be in the old boys network, right?
Sure.
You have to go to the golf course, you have to go to the right church, and so on. And then after those provisions came into place, it forced those companies to actually list those jobs when they were open, right? I mean, when a manager position opened up in a factory, the company had to say, all right, this job is out there, everybody can apply, which created an access point for white men to get promoted. So if you follow DEI from the implementation of the Civil Rights Act until now, if you look at who's yielded the most benefit, it's actually been white men, followed by white women, followed by folks of color.
Right.
Now they're saying, you know, these are the provisions that are taking away your opportunities. But the research and the data shows differently.
Right. And it makes you wonder why that messaging is effective. Where when they spew that on a microphone in front of thousands of people and they get head nods, they get cheers.
Yeah. So what that would make that narrative thrive is the idea that,
as we wind down,
it's the idea that communities, when the folks who are struggling the most do better, you know, it takes something away from you.
There you
right?
go. It's a threat to you.
Yeah. And the reality is it's not. It just means that they get to live next to you. They get to live in the same thriving communities you do, and you get to learn about a culture that's outside of the community you've known.
Absolutely.
Which is uncomfortable, but it's necessary.
So we appreciate you, State Representative Darren Madison, for joining us on Be a Voice Radio on 860 WNOV. Next, we're going to make room for Al Sharpton, and you all be safe, be careful, and bye-bye.